Hi, welcome to Azure User Group Sweden, the Global Azure Sweden edition. Good morning, good afternoon, good noon, everyone. Good afternoon or noon to you, Håkan. How are you
Yeah,
today?
yeah, I'm very fine today. Jonah, how are you?
I'm great. It's exciting because it's our first time that we're joining Global Azure Initiative this week, which is a few days event globally across the world. Yes, let's go ahead.
Yeah, so just a quick introduction here to Jonah and to me. So I'm very happy to introduce Jonah Andersson. She is an Azure MVP. She is an international speaker. She's a podcast host, and she's an author with O'Reilly. And she is also speaking at many different conferences all over the world.
Yes, thank you. And would like to take the honor to introduce my co-leader, Håkan Silfvernagel. He is our co-host, co-organizer of this event of Global Azure Sweden, and he is also a Microsoft MVP for AI. He is active in the community as a community leader of AI 42, Norwegian.net user group. He works as an AI specialist at Miles in Norway, and he's also an MCT and international speaker as well. And yeah, we're very happy to host this session. And in this session, we have some great speakers coming up. But before we do that, Håkan and I, let's do the code of conduct. In our user group, we follow a code of conduct where we are expecting everyone, including ourselves, to be nice and friendly, listen with purpose, and be respectful to others in terms of like your comments and questions on the live chat and even during our discussions in our community. And today, Håkan will be sharing about what is Global Azure Initiative.
Yes, so Global Azure is an international initiative here for communities. So over 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays, different communities all around the world are sharing sessions on Azure, either through in-person events, it can be hybrid events, and it can also be live streams for everyone around the world to join. So this is a very perfect opportunity to learn about Azure from the best in-class community leaders. So currently this year, we've had more than 500 speakers, 600 sessions over 6 continents. And of course, we at Azure User Group Sweden is very happy to be able to be part of this initiative.
Yes, that's right. And today we have a 3-hour session at the Global Azure Sweden 2024. And we have selected 3 speakers who submitted sessions in our CFB. So we have a Win, who is actually joining us very soon live, who will be speaking about topic on Azure Arc. We'll share the agenda soon. We also have Saeid and also Timmy today as one of our last sessions. So this is our agenda as an overview to those that maybe wants to pick one of them, and it will be also in sequence with 15 minutes break in between. So we will have Wim speaking about exploring Azure Arc, unleashing extended security updates. And then we will have side Azure strategies to tame the cows in hybrid environments. And then Timmy later on will be sharing about how you can be successful in your cloud journey with Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. So yes, we're excited about this session. Okay.
Yeah, then I think it's time here to introduce our very first speaker. So we're very happy here to add Matthyssen.
You're
Hello.
right. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having me
Hi.
today.
Yes.
What
Hi
level
to
do I
hi from Sweden to Belgium.
Yeah,
It's
I think
amazing.
the weather
We
is a
can be.
little bit better over here. I hope. Yeah, the sun is shining again, so switching
Yes.
from rain to sun and back. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you
Thanks
for
for having
coming
me.
back.
Yeah.
Yes, you
So
did a session once with us a few years ago
yeah.
with Carol. So it's good that you're back.
That's
Yes.
already a long time ago, I think.
Yeah.
So
So now,
next time I come over to Sweden.
Yes, that would be great. We'll organize a hybrid or on in-person event soon,
Would love that.
hopefully later
um,
this year.
so now today, Wim, what will you present here to our audience?
So I'm quite into Azure Arc and the hybrid cloud and all those things, and I will talk about a specific part of Azure Arc, where Azure Arc can help you in extending your security updates for Windows Server 2012 or 2012 R2, because like most people will know, those things are out of life, but at a lot of companies they're still running. And to make them a little bit more secure and keep them up to date, you need those ESUs, and Azure Arc can help you with that. So I will cover everything, show some demos, how we can automate it, and so on and so on. So yeah.
Yes, that's great. So yeah, we're excited to learn from you, and Wim will take questions and flexible with questions. So feel free to drop in your questions in the live chat wherever you're watching us right now, and watch out for like ask questions, because we're gonna be picking like best technical questions for some sponsor raffles and giveaways later on at the end. All
And if
right.
they have
So
some questions later on, they can always contact me. They will probably
yes.
find me somewhere on the internet. So
Okay.
I'm happy to
That's
help.
That's awesome. So let's go ahead. Let me share your presentation right now, and
Now it's
it's
still Star
time for
Wars, so
you
let me get my
to
slide.
shine. Let me just remove ourselves. Yes.
It's showing. Let me switch. Give me a sec. Now I'm in full screen, I think, Iona.
Uh,
There.
yes,
Yeah.
you are.
Okay.
Yes, great. Yes.
So welcome everybody from my side. I'm happy that I can deliver a session for the Global Azure, and now today for the Global Sweden event. I did it a few years ago. I already also brought a session also online. So I'm quite happy that I can also join today. Like I already said, I will be looking into exploring Azure Arc, unleashing extended security updates. And on the agenda, I will give a short intro related to dinosaurs and so on. So I will be talking about when dinosaurs walked the earth. Then I will look into extended security updates, or like most people call them these days, the ESUs. And then how you can use ESUs enabled by Azure Arc, how you make that specific license, how you match it to a specific server. I will also look into automation. So afterwards, if you never did before, you don't need to do ClickOps, everything to the Azure portal. But you will also be able to use some scripts and so on. I will also look into some cost optimization tips. ESUs are quite expensive if you have still a big environment running those Windows servers 2012 R2s or 2012s, and you want to use ESUs. It's not that cheap, but there are some ways to optimize your cost. And like Jonah already said at the end, if you have some questions, feel free to ask them. If you have some questions later on, you can always ping me through my hashtag on Twitter, on X, sorry, or contact me through LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to help. Let me also shortly introduce myself. So my name is Matthyssen. I'm an Azure technical advisor at telco in Belgium called Proximus. I also deliver all kind of Azure-related trainings, also on Azure Arc, of course. I'm also a proud board member of a Belgium user group called MC2MC, Microsoft Cloud and Client Management Community, where we also arrange or organize all kind of monthly events with a focus on Microsoft Cloud, the hybrid cloud, endpoint and security, and on data and compliance. So a broad Microsoft look into the Microsoft world. I'm also an MCT, and since a few years, I'm also a Microsoft Azure MVP. So, like I already said, if you ever want to reach out, you can contact me on X or on LinkedIn. To make it a little bit easier, you can also just scan the QR code, and then you will end up on my LinkedIn page. So, introduction. When dinosaurs walked the earth, I hope not everybody was expecting dinosaurs. Most people were familiar with movies. I'm quite a movie fan. So whenever they saw this gate in a specific movie, I will not call the name, they were expecting dinosaurs, and then after a few minutes, the O's, A's, and then the running started over. But mix that specific gate when you open a specific server room at a customer or your own server room. Probably you're expecting a quite modern environment, a hybrid environment. So hopefully a lot of people are already running Windows Server 2022, are using the latest version of Ubuntu, even maybe have Azure Stack ACI implemented, but still there are quite a lot of people still running some of those Windows Server 2012 or 2. They can have specific reasons why they are still running. Maybe they are running some specific legacy applications that can't be brought to a higher OS or whatsoever. Maybe some customer or another third party created or wrote a specific applications for them that as a requirement has Windows Server 2012 or 2. That application didn't get modernized. Maybe that third party customer ended the support on that specific application, but the customer is still using it. So those servers are still running there. We're also always talking about modernization, cloud adoption, and so on and so on. But I must say, in Belgium, I see still quite a lot of these. And without knowing, the end of life of Windows Server 2012 or 2 was on October 2023. So already a few months ago, and a lot of customers mixed up and missed those. So after that specific date, Microsoft didn't give any support anymore. And if you were in your normal update window schedule and so on, you couldn't receive any new updates. But if you're still running those old servers, you still want to be secure probably, you still want to foresee them from specific updates, and you still require them. So that is where, for example, ESUs can start helping you. So what are ESUs? Extended security updates for any version of Windows Server include specific security updates and bulletins rated for critical and important updates. It's also for a maximum period of time. So from the moment you start using those ESUs, you will receive the latest security updates, even if the normal mainstream support and even the extended support is passed. So normally, if you buy a specific license for a specific OS, you will have the normal updates. Those are the mainstream support. Then mostly you can buy some extended support. Mostly is at around 2 years. So then you can still update. But after the end of life, the only option to get any security updates related to the specific OS, Windows OS you're running, are through the extended security updates. You normally also need to pay some amount of money for those, but it's a way to even extend that supportability longer and longer for specific OSs. So if to make it a little bit clearer, if you look in the version and the timing, if you, for example, look at Windows Server 2012, you can see doesn't matter if it's hosted in Azure, if it's hosted on Azure Stack ACI, or even not in Azure. With not in Azure, we mean it's maybe running on Hyper-V on-prem. It can also be running in any other cloud. So maybe you have some on AWS or whatsoever running, or even maybe on Broadcom, VMware, whatsoever, doesn't matter. So after that specific end of life, you still, like you can see on the screen right now, you can still have 3 years extended for receiving those specific updates. But after that end date of October 13, 2026, it's really gone. So the only thing is that you're buying some more time to change that specific application running on that Windows Server 2012 or replace it by something completely new. So maybe you can buy a new SaaS application. maybe you can simply move it to Azure and then make it a PaaS solution whatsoever. So the only thing you're doing is buying yourself a little bit more time to get that specific workload modernized, I would say. Important thing to remember when you're using those ESUs, so that Windows Server 2012 or 2012 or 2 can be running in Azure. So maybe you previously had it running on-prem, you maybe did a lift and shift to Azure Migrate or whatsoever, and now that server is running in Azure. Then that's a nice feature. Those ESUs and these updates are provided free of charge. So from the moment a Windows Server 2012 or 2012 or 2 is running in Azure, it's automatically enabled to receive those ESUs, and you don't need to pay any extra money. So then you can still use it for 3 years on, and you will still receive those security updates. The other thing is you have Azure, but these days a lot of customers are also running Azure Stack ACI. So they have Azure Stack ACI running on-prem. If those 2012 or 2s are running on that Azure Stack ACI, it's completely the same. So they also will receive those ESUs completely free from charge. Mostly to configure it, you can use PowerShell. So what's the thing you can do? Maybe you have a Windows Server 2012 or 2 running on Hyper-V or VMware. You lift and shift it through Azure, you receive those free ESUs, or you migrate that specific workload running on that server to your Azure Stack ACI environment, and then those ESUs are also completely free. Of course, there are some other options. Most of the time, people running on Hyper-V have that VM over there. There is another option. You can Arc enable that specific VM. So you can onboard it into Azure Arc, and then through Azure Arc enable ESUs, so that those servers running on Hyper-V or VMware or in AWS still receive those updates. The only thing is then you need to pay for those ESUs. But that's another option. And then some customers, I didn't see them, I never came in contact with those, are not able to, for example, those specific servers running on Hyper-V or VMware, they can't get them Arc enabled for some reason. Maybe it's not supported by security, their networking doesn't have the capabilities, doesn't matter what reason. So they can't use Azure Arc to use those extended security updates. Then the only option is to buy a specific MAC key. And if you use that MAC key, and you use that MAC key on that specific server, through the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, you can start enabling those ESUs. But that's a different way of paying for it. But it's, the last option you have. If all those other things don't work, you can't lift and shift it to Azure, you can't migrate it to Azure Stack ACI, or you can't Arc enable it, you can still do it through buying that specific Mac and then using the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. There are also, to use those with Arc, there are some specific purchasing requirements. You need to have software assurance via volume licensing programs. So through your enterprise agreement, to your enterprise agreement subscription, or all the other options you can see on the screen. Also, a specific reminder is that if your Windows Server 2012 or 2 machines are licensed through SPLI or with a server subscription, you don't require software assurance. So keep in mind how it's working, and the purchasing option is really a licensing thing. So you need to be sure that you have those specifically. Otherwise, you can't use those ESUs. Important in the story, and a question I get quite a lot is, nice. We can do it through Azure Arc. We would use Azure Arc. We're already using it for quite some other servers on-prem or whatsoever. But what's the price if you do it with Azure Arc? Well, if you use the standard monthly rate, it will be for a Windows Server 2012, 16 core, 70 euros. For the 8 core, what's the minimum? It's 35 euros. And for the other ones, you can see it. If you have the data center license, it's quite a lot of money. Most customers will be in the 35 euros. So most of the time I create an ESU license and then map it to VM running Windows Server 2012 R2 on a Hyper-V. And I map it specifically so they know that specific server will cost us 35 euros each month related to that specific ESU. Next to Windows Server 2012 R2, you can also use these days ESUs for SQL Server 2012. So if people still running those and want to receive those extended security updates specifically for SQL, you can also do that one, but you can see the price is quite high. So my advice would be try to migrate as fast as possible from those SQL Server 2012. Same thing also counts for those Windows Server 2012 R2s. 35 euros, yeah, it's agreeable for most customers. It's not cheap, it's not too expensive, but it's something just to give them more time or to buy them more time to modernize that specific workload. So let us look in how those ASUs can be enabled by Azure Arc. I will not go too deeply into Azure Arc. I think Saeid in the next session will probably cover this topic quite a lot. For people who don't know Arc, everybody knows the Azure environment, Azure portal at the moment is using the R model. If you want to use Azure Resource Manager also for your on-premise resources or resources running in the other cloud, you can use Azure Arc. You simply connect those specific resources through Azure Arc, through the Azure Connected Machine Agent. And by connecting those, you can use specific services you're already using for your Azure environment and your Azure resources for your on-premise resources. So for example, you can start using tags, you can start using the Update Management Center, you can start using Azure Monitor, and so on and so on. It's available for quite a lot of infrastructure services. It's also for data services, but Windows Server is quite infrastructure related. So you have those Azure Arc enabled servers. You can onboard even a Windows Server 2008 who's still running those. You can't do a lot with it, but it's possible. You can use Windows Server 2012 R2 for the ESUs, and then going up higher, 2016, 2019, and 2022. You can also onboard all kind of Linux distros. Next to that, you can also even onboard, if you have SQL Server running on Windows VM on-prem, you can even Arc enable that SQL Server. Another option you have is you have a Kubernetes cluster running on-prem. You can onboard that one also into Azure Arc, or also even if that AKS is running on Azure Stack ACI. So we have a lot of combinations possible these days. Next to those, you can use Azure Arc in combination with your Azure Stack ACI. So for example, you can deploy VMs from which you create into Azure. You can onboard them and deploy them to your Azure Stack ACI. One of the things I also use with customers and talk a lot about is Azure Arc enabled SEVMM. I'm not going to deep dive in that one now. And the last option is for a lot of people running any hypervisor on-prem will still use VMware, even with those Broadcom stories these days. A lot of people seem to switch, but you can also Azure Arc enable your VMware vSpheres. Like I already said, when you onboard any of your servers then or infrastructure resources into Azure Arc, you can use additional management servers available in Azure on those on-premise or other workloads running in other clouds. So we can use Azure Policy like that, Azure Monitor, Azure Automation, Update Management, Azure Auto Manage, and even Azure Lighthouse if you're, for example, a CSP. Like I already said, you can enable ESUs for Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2012 R2, but also for SQL Server 2012.
Yes. Will?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I will interrupt you because we got a question from our audience. So let me reveal and read it to you. So it's from ME Spice.
Yeah.
What are the past resources that can be onboarded on Azure Arc?
Most of the time, the PaaS resources, if you're running Kubernetes, you can, for example, run SQL services on the Azure SQL. You can onboard those on Kubernetes. But PaaS services running, so we have a VM running, and you can onboard that VM into Azure. But then you can use specific resources available in Azure for that specific VM. If you really want to have some PaaS integration, Microsoft is really working on those. Mostly those are running on top of any kind of Kubernetes running on-prem. So you put that PaaS service on top of a Kubernetes running on your Azure Stack ACI or any other workload. But Microsoft is really working on those now to integrate them.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Another question, or that's the
Uh,
one? I hope
so
it's yeah.
so
Okay.
far we got one. Yes, thank
Okay.
you. That's a yes. Yes.
To start working and using Azure Arc and to use start using ESUs, I mostly have a specific management structure. I mostly use a dedicated Azure-related subscription. So I have specific landing zones for Arc infrastructure. As you can see on the screen, I have also from the Kubernetes if I want to run those specific PaaS services. So for every type, I have specific landing zones. So I have a dedicated subscription specifically for Azure Arc Infra, which is underneath my MGA Arc Infra management group. In that way, I can use specific policies purely related to Azure Arc infrastructure on that specific management group, and all subscriptions underneath it will get those policies, for example. Next to that, you also need some specific resource providers. The ones you mostly need purely for Arc infrastructure are the Microsoft Hybrid Compute and the Microsoft Hybrid Connectivity. So whenever I onboard a new subscription, I automated that those specific resource providers are directly installed or configured. If you want to use any of those other infrastructure-related Arc resources, like Azure Arc enabled SCVMM, you probably also need to have some extra resource providers. If you ever want to automate those or use them quite quickly, just go to my GitHub. I have a complete Azure Arc onboarding. It's an Azure PowerShell script, but it will install all required resource providers for any of those infrastructure-related services. Next to that, to make it the automation and the onboarding process a lot more structured and automated, I create some service principles in front, especially for Azure Connected Machine onboarding. So you want to install that connected machine agent automatically on a specific VM, and you want to make the process more automated, so you don't need to put in the password and so on when you run it. You can create this specific service principle in front. Keep in mind, depending on the amount of time, the secret. So we can choose between day, week, month, I think it is. It will be go out of support, and then you need to change it. So definitely store that specific secret in a key vault and try to make an automation enrollment flow around it. I also create specific resource group on those specific subscriptions I add. So as you can see, to onboard Azure Arc enabled servers, I have that RG PRD MEH Arc Azure V01 resource group. But I also create one specifically to store the ESUs. So whenever I create a new ESU, it will be automatically placed in that ESU resource group, just to make to separate it and make it easier to delete a specific ESU, so I don't need to bother it in, for example, in my management resource group, where all my other management Arc-related resources are needed. So I have a dedicated resource group purely and alone for storing ESUs. If you want to onboard, hopefully Saeid will explain it. You can go through the Azure portal. to the infrastructure page, and you can create a specific script. For people not aware of it, let me quickly show it. Just go to the global search bars on top in your Azure portal, type in Azure Arc, open the Azure Arc main page. You can simply get started, and then click on Overview, and then Add Resources. Choose Machines, click on Add Create, Add a machine, and so on. And then you can generate the script, and you can go through the script. You can select that specific service principal, and so on and so on. And when all is good, you will have that specific onboarding script, which will help you to, when you onboard and run that script on a specific on-prem service or to a GPO, that specific server will be onboarded into Azure in that specific resource group. If you create ESUs, they will be onboarded in those specific ESUs. So if I go back to my screen, so we have that specific script. Let me switch again. That's better. You created that script. You can see you went through all the blocks, filled them in, and at the end of that, you can simply click on download, and then you will receive that onboarding script in point PS1. Keep in mind that service principal secret from your service principal you created earlier on. You need to put it in that specific script. Just a little tip: if you create that service principal, it will only be shown once that secret. You can download it, but that's why I said store it in your key vault. Otherwise, you probably lose it and you're not able to use that specific service principal anymore. Also, another tip: when you specify and go through that specific flow to create a script through the portal, you can add some specific tags, but also some tags purely related to Azure Arc. One of them is, let me put that away, is a data center tag. As you can see in this screen, two accolades are behind it. This is automatically added. So if you don't want to have, and you want to have the value of in the name of that specific tag following your naming conventions, you will probably need to delete those. So keep in mind of own those, because the first time I created, I had two accolades next to a specific tag, which doesn't follow a specific customer's naming convention. Just a little tip. And then the thing you can do is you can copy that specific script on a specific server on-prem running Windows Server 2012 R2 and run it with administrative privileges. And then that specific server will be onboarded into Arc. As you can see on the screen right now, it's one of my Windows Server 2012 R2s where I ran that script. It takes around 1 to max 5 minutes. And you can see it will install that specific Azure Connected Machine agent. And from that moment on, that specific server is enabled into Azure Arc. How does this look in the Azure portal? Let me go back to Arc. Yeah, I'm already there, but to show you, underneath Azure Arc resources, you have the machines. And then under machines, all your Arc-enabled VMs are managed. You can simply do a grouping by type whatsoever by operating system. So if I do that one, you can see all my 2012 R2 standards are on board. So I have at the moment 3 servers which are on board. And then you can use them like any other Arc-enabled VM. You can add extra extensions. So if you want to use your monitor and so on, you can simply add those extensions and so on. You can use the update center, inventory, run commands. So all other features available like any other Azure Arc-enabled VM, you can also do it for your Windows Server 2012 R2s. Let me go back, switch it again. So I already showed this one also. But then the most important thing, if you want to start using those ESUs in combination with Azure Arc, you need to create a specific ESU license. There are 2 different ones. You can choose between data center and standard. That's the first thing. And then you can, with those ESUs, choose between physical cores and virtual cores. Physical cores, when you select that one, the minimum is 16 cores, and virtual cores, when you select that one, the minimum is 8 cores. Even if a specific VM has just 4 vCPUs, you still need to choose 8 cores. If a physical server has 8 physical cores, it's a physical machine, you still need to choose a minimum of 16. That's how it is. You can't choose lower or whatsoever. The minimum per VM or per physical server, for a VM it will be 8, and for a physical server, if you still have one of those running Windows Server 2012, is 16. Another important thing is the physical cores. You can also use them for Hyper-V, still running Windows Server 2012 R2. I hope you don't, but yeah, I don't put my hand in the fire for that, because I would guess some customers are still running those. It's better to use the physical cores so that all the VMs on that specific data center server, Windows Server 2012 R2, are licensed and can use those ESUs, because that will be a lot of cheaper than selecting those servers differently. So physical cores is only used for Windows Server 2012 R2 physical servers or Hyper-V servers. But most of the customers I'm seeing using those use VMs, and they have still a VM running Windows Server 2012 R2. So most of the time you will end up with virtual cores, which then have a minimum of 8. So an example on the screen, I use a specific naming convention. So for example, I have an ESU physical core data center license 01. You can create them in a deactivated state, or you can directly create them in an activated state. From the moment you set them in an activated state, even if you don't add a specific server, eligible resource, you don't map it, you start paying for it. As long as it's in a deactivated state, you don't pay for it. So the idea is, when you create those ESUs, set them in a deactivated state, and from the moment you map, you want to map a specific server that's eligible for it, you activate them, and then you add that specific server. But let me show you quickly. So once again, in the Azure Arc portal, Azure Arc view in the portal, scroll down to operations, and you can simply click on extended security updates. You can see those updates are still there. If, for example, if I want to activate this specific license, which now at the moment is in a deactivated state, you can simply click on it and then click on edit. And then you can put in activated state, and then you simply save it. And then for that moment on, you can read it, the billing cycling will start. Keep in mind, end of date of Windows Server 2012 R2 was 10 October 2023. It doesn't matter if you activate a specific ESU now. So in April, you will pay a one-time fee for all the time in between. So every month in between, you will pay, for example, 35 euros. So it's a one-time fee payback until October 23. So keep that one in mind. You will pay it at once. So it will be paid, and it will be at your next Azure bill. And from that date on, you will pay every month for that specific price. But you still pay for that different time until the beginning of those ESUs. So keep that one in mind. It's an important one. Then if you want to create one through the portal, through ClickUps, just to give an example, it's quite easy. Select the management subscription, select the subscription. For example, select your Arc subscription. Let me select that one, Arc Infra. Select a specific resource group, give it a name, and then you can activate later. Like I said, choose your region, and then over here, you need to fill in the license details. The easy thing is, if you use virtual cores, it will already swap to the standard edition, so you don't need to choose between data center or standard. For a virtual core, so if it's a VM, it will always be the standard edition, even if it's a data center edition. So a VM running data center edition, you can simply map it to this one, even if it's saying standard. So for the physical course, you can choose between data center and standard. But most of the time, you will have virtual course. And like you see, if I put in 5, it will say total number must be 8. So for virtual course, 8, and then you're good to go. Over here is that cost explanation. Newer will be back billing is how Microsoft calls it. So it's a one-time fee charge at the typical ASU monthly rate for every month supported has elapsed. So back to the beginning and you pay for it. You can see the pricing again, and then you need to say that you're really using software license assurance, and then you just click it and you click on create. Also, you have an easier way to do it. I made a PowerShell script for it. So for example, if I run this one, you can see my subscription rate. It's not that clear. That specific subscription is ASU license, minimal core 8. And if I just click enter, you can see in a minute a new ASU license will be created. Much more faster than doing it through the portal and through ClickUps. But it's a way. You can't use Bicep at the moment. You can't use ARM. So the thing I did is I created an Azure PowerShell script, but you can use the REST API, and I put REST API in it. So if I open my Visual Studio, for example, and we look at that specific script, you have some parameters you need to fill in. It's self-explaining. So it also checks for a specific naming convention. So if you want to have your ASUs called in a specific name, you can change this specific variable. And if that name doesn't map the parameter given by the one deploying that through that script, it won't be deployed. And as you can see in the end, I just use wrap REST API inside the Azure PowerShell doing all the stuff. So if we now go back to the Azure portal and click refresh, you can see that specific ASU license is created. Another thing is, through the portal, now we have the option to delete. It wasn't there before. Also keep in mind, if you have a resource lock on that specific resource group, you can't delete. Most of the time when I delete a specific ASU, I also created a specific script for it. I think it's this one, the remove one. Once again, I just give the description as a parameter and that specific license, or 5 again. I just click on go, and that specific ASU will be deleted. Sometimes it can take some times, but yeah, it is what it is. So after a few refreshes, it will be probably gone. It's still there. If you then want to map a specific license to a specific server, you simply click on eligible resources, and all the Windows Server 2012 R2s or 2012 you onboarded through Azure Arc will be listed. You can see the ones I already onboarded already have a specific ASU license matched, but that's how it is. So if a new Windows Server 2012 is onboarded, it will be listed here, and then you can map it. You simply select it, and then you can click on Enable ASUs, for example, and select a specific virtual physical core and select a specific license. A nice tip and something important for a lot of people, those ASUs cost a specific amount of money. Some companies have split up their type of workload, so they have production, they have development and test. So for example, if you have software assurance and you installed your development servers through Visual Studio, for example, then you can map a matching server. So we have VM1 in production and VM2 in development. VM1 is using that software assurance license, and VM2, that Dev1, is using Visual Studio license. Then you can map both servers if they're doing the same thing and are completely separated under one ASU license. And you only pay for that production server. So that's a little tip. Let me go to a specific slide explaining this. It's this one normally. Let me switch. Okay, I already showed this one, link it. The automation, the script is over there. I will share the slides afterwards. So if you want to go to my GitHub repo, those specific scripts are in there. So we have that provisioning script and that remove script, and just match it to your specific environment. Yeah, I already run those, so I can skip it. Here's your example. I will match it later. Where it is? Here it is. So dev test, to qualify for these scenarios, you must already have a billable ESU license. So you first of all create a specific license, then you map your production server to that specific license, and afterwards you map your development server also under that specific license. The only thing you need to do is use a specific tag for it. So non-production, the ESU license should have the tag ESU usage Windows Server 2012 Visual Studio Dev Test, or you can also use that disaster recovery. Most of the time, customers use this one because they're most used in that way. But let me show it. If I, for example, go to my extended security updates again, I still have 4 minutes, Jonah, if that's okay to explain.
Yes, yeah, that's okay. Yes.
Yeah, because this is a nice one to show. So
Yes.
I have a
Yeah.
specific ESU license over here. It's the license 03. If I click on that one, you can see that specific license have that specific tag. So that tag, exactly how Microsoft adds it, needs to be added. You can see it doesn't completely follow my naming convention, but it is what it is. It exactly needs to be that one. So that tag is specified on that specific ESU. And if I then look into my linked resources, you can see I have my server production web 044, and I have my development one 044 doing the same thing. Both are connected, but I will be only paying for this one. So it will cost me 35 euros instead of 70 euros each month, for example. The only thing, you need to have that tag on that specific ESU license, and you also need to have that specific tag added to that development server. So if I go to that specific server, you will see that specific, oh, I clicked the wrong one, sorry. It needs to be this one. That specific tag is also added to that development server. So if both tags are added, you will only pay for that production server. So that's in a way to lower the money. If you then want to do those ESU specific updates, if I go to my, for example, one of those servers, 043, that one is already enabled quite some time through ESU. And for example, you could see this specific KB article, this specific update is an ESU update. So without doing not much, just enabling that ESU, making that eligible server using that specific ESU, I'm able to receive those extra updates. And at the end of the month, on my Azure bill, I will see 35 euros for that specific ESU that needs to be paid. And my server still keeps getting those specific updates. That's how it mostly works. Let me go back to my slides to close off maybe. So this one is really an important one to remember. Use those tags if you're qualified for those scenarios. That's quite important. If you ever have problems with ESUs, so you created that ESU, you map that eligible server to it, you onboarded your Windows Server 2012 into Arc, you mapped it to that ESU, but for some reason you still don't get any updates, so you don't get those extended security updates. Go to this specific website. It will explain and give you some troubleshooting tips. So if it's not working, go through the steps mentioned on this website and probably you will get it fixed. I would just wanted to give it. I already showed this one, I think. So that was that specific KB. And if you look at it, that KB is a monthly rollup from April 9, 2024. So it's really an ESU because normal update window or the extended update window ended on 10 October 2023. And I think with that being said, I think I'm at the Q&A. Any more questions, Jonah?
Yes. I don't think we got more live questions from the audience.
Yeah.
However, I do have, of course, I have a lot of questions, but I'm just curious if you have any, what do you call that, tips and advice to those that are just beginners or have never touched Azure Arc. What are your advice in getting started with this?
For getting started, I won't do the complete automated package. Whenever I start off with any kind of new resource or server in Azure, I mostly get familiar with it with going through the Azure portal, know all the steps, know all the configurations, and so on. And especially with Azure Arc, I do quite a lot of research at home. So I have quite a lot of environments. So I have my VMware environment, I have an Hyper-V. My wife isn't always happy with it because it's all built in a server rack into my garage. So in our garage, it's quite some noise, but I try to play around with it. Azure Arc is quite useful, I think, because especially in Belgium, I think in Sweden it will be the same. A lot of companies are working with Azure, but also quite a lot of them have still quite some lot of resources running on-prem or in another cloud, AWS, and that's where I think Azure Arc really comes into play. Just because you're already familiar with using all those services, working through the Azure portal, working through biceps and so on and so on. And just to be able to use them on your on-prem environment is really nice. So how I do my testing is I wrote a blog post about it. I have a NUC, an Intel NUC at home. It's a small device. I put on Hyper-V on top of it and added some VMs on top of those. And then I start playing around with Azure Arc. The only thing is, if you try to test the ESUs outside of a company environment, keep in mind if you do it, for example, on a Visual Studio Test Dev subscription, for example, I think the amount of money you can spend is around 130 euros, if I'm correct, for most of them. If you start using ESUs and playing around with those, and you have that backability, so you need to pay the difference, your 130 euros will be gone before you tested out anything.
Okay,
Just to give
that's a good advice because beginners usually
so
come
don't play on a Visual Studio Enterprise test dev subscription with this, because you start it up, you create that specific ESU, and your money is already gone.
Yeah.
And you activate it, and 2 days later, oh, I can't do anything anymore on my subscription, because all the money is already spent.
That's great. Thank you so much for answering that question. We don't have any live questions right now, but the next session is also a bit about hybrid and Azure Arc as well.
Yeah, that's why
our audience will learn a lot.
This is something quite specifically for specific customers still running Windows Server 2012, 2012 or 2. But it's a way Azure Arc can help you with using those ESUs without hassling around with Mac keys and the Windows and Microsoft 365 Admin Center, because it's not a cheap product. It's just a way to buy some extra time to modernize your workloads and applications.
Yes, all right. Yes, Håkan, do you have questions before we take a mini break and switch to the next session coming up as well?
No, not really. We got a comment here from one of our viewers.
So
I think it was in relating to that we could learn more about Azure and Azure Arc in our next session, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. If our audience wants to reach out to you, Wim, what's the best way?
Some people do it through X. A lot of people also do it through LinkedIn. Just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message to ask questions. And Belgian people mostly find me on WhatsApp. For some reason, they get my phone number from somebody, and then
Yes.
And
All right. Yes.
to be said, I get quite a lot of questions related to Azure Arc in
Yeah.
whatever way. And this is something specific is used, but the whole package.
Yes.
But
Y-
most of the time,
Yes.
I try to answer them whenever I have the time. But yeah,
Yeah.
we all
That's
know time
awesome.
is
Yeah.
something valuable.
We will be sharing the summary of all speakers' contact and information links at the end of this event. So that's great. Thank you
Do
so
you
much.
still share the slide deck, or
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah?
We'll do a
Okay, I
summary and
will
then
PDF
yes.
it and send it through, so then at least people can already click on those specific links I was
Mhm.
referring to and so on.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Wim, for your time. We really
For
appreciate
having me.
it, especially on Saturday. Thank you so much. Awesome session. And we're happy to have you back this year and for more again next time.
Then I come over.
Yes, yes. I'm coming to Belgium also soon.
Yeah,
So,
I will
yes,
see you
yeah.
in a few weeks, I think. Yeah.
Yes, yes, we will. Yes, thank you so much. So, to everyone, our next session is coming up as well. So, we got Wim, the awesome session, and the second one is coming. It will be Saeid Dahl. He will be talking about Azure strategies to tame the cows in a hybrid environment. So, thank you so much. So, in the meantime, we will say goodbye and we will take a break before the next one with a very nice music and video that Håkan made for us. See you later.
Bye bye.
Yes. Welcome back, everyone.
Yes, hi, welcome back. I hope that you had a good break. It wasn't really 15 minutes because we want to keep up with the agenda and the schedule, and our next speaker is ready. So, should we go right ahead, Håkan, and introduce our next speaker?
Yeah, let's bring in Said.
Yes.
Hello, beautiful people.
Yes.
Hello,
Hi.
welcome.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
We're
Yeah.
great. How are you
Good,
doing
good.
today?
I'm really happy because it's a
Yes.
beautiful Saturday here in Sweden, in Malmo,
Mhm.
and also, yeah, Global Azure together with User Group Sweden. Yeah, why shouldn't I
Yes.
be happy?
Mhm.
Yes,
But
that's
I
right.
heard say that it's not your first session in this global Azure.
So, first of all, I have to say thank you both of you guys because I need to mention about that. So a year ago, exactly like this month or last month, so I've been invited by you guys to this stage, User Group Sweden, and it was my first stage. So after a year, I went back here with Global Azure, new topics. So this journey has been started with you guys. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's
Oh,
that's amazing.
mhm.
That's inspiring to hear. Because I know also since a year ago, when you spoke in our user group as a new speaker, I knew also that since then you became accelerated
Yeah.
your ranking in the community. You became a Microsoft Learn expert like me. So I have like a forever learning T-shirt here as well, and you also was involved in Azure Skåne in Malmo, and I know that you've also been speaking in conferences. And yeah, you have your own community as well, two of them.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it
Okay,
just started with you guys, and yeah,
great.
so I have to say thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes,
So
that's great.
now for today, what will you be presenting to our viewers?
Yeah, another thank you to you guys because I realized how you picked up these three sessions because it's a full pack of understanding what is Azure Arc, what is a hybrid environment, and it continues to cloud adoption framework, and it's
Mhm.
really great. So in my session, kinda continue that part that Wim already explained, but not for only Azure Arc, but also all of the strategies that we need to understand about hybrid environment and how we can control the chaos. So it's all about my experience, after 15 years, all of the pain, all of the problems that I've solved, and I pack it into close to 40
Yes.
slides. Okay, so I'll try to explain it as much as I can.
All right, that's great. How do you want your questions asked, by the way? Like on the go
You can
or like
interrupt me.
after?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
interrupt
okay.
me.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll see. Let's go that way. So that's great. I like the word that how we can avoid the cows in hybrid environments. That's really interesting to me as well. This is a amazing topics coming up. So are you ready to rock the
let's go,
stage?
Tigers.
Tigers. Okay, great. I'm a tiger myself, so let's do
Yeah,
that. Okay. Oh, thank you.
yeah. Let's start then. Perfect. So, hello and welcome again to my session at User Group Sweden in Global Azure event. Uh, Today, I'm going to talk about Azure strategies to tame the chaos in hybrid environment. Maybe you are wondering why I use this video of horses, wild horses, Mustangs here because I believe hybrid environment, hybrid cloud is beautiful like these horses, powerful, very flexible, and also you can feel some freedom when you have hybrid environment. However, sometimes you need to tame the chaos. You need to try to tame these horses, these powerful, beautiful horses. So today, I'm trying to focus on that part, which is included all of my experiences, all of the issue problems that I've faced during these years, and hope this information and also sharing this experience with you guys be helpful for you. So
if I want to start, I'll start with, let me see. Okay, yeah, the boring part, but yeah, we used to it, right? So my name is Saeid Dahl. I've been working 15 years in IT industry. Some days I felt, yeah, I don't want to do it, but I'm here at this stage, and it's a good sign because it means how much I love to be here. So yeah, some days maybe you can feel, yeah, that's not what I wanted to do, but it's a kind of illusion. So don't think about that. Also, I've been working as Azure Senior Solution Architect at a company called Opheads. So my expertise around hybrid cloud adoption, automation, and integration on Azure. Plus, I'm PowerShell lover, so I'm doing a lot of things with PowerShell. Regarding community, I'm Microsoft Learn expert. I'm running 2 communities in Microsoft Learn. The global one is Microsoft Hero, Microsoft Zero to Hero. Maybe you already heard about that. So we have around 6,000 members in this community. And also we have another community which is in Farsi language. So that's the specific community for those people. And beside that, I'm global Azure admin, part of global Azure admin team. So very warm welcome from global Azure admin team as well. And if you would like to connect me, my LinkedIn and X, I would like to spell it Twitter again, but yeah, Twitter or X, you can connect me. Or if you want to join to our Microsoft Zero to Hero community and be part of that big community together with the rest of 6,000 members, aka.ms/join Zero to Hero. We will wait for you there. So let's start with the good part. Understanding hybrid environment. So before we start anything, we need to understand about that, right? So the first, the things that we have here, it's definition, benefits, and challenge, right? So we can start with definition part. What is hybrid cloud, right? So hybrid cloud, in a simple terms, it means you have your on-premise environment, which is included your servers, I don't know, different services there. And also maybe you have some resources, servers in your data center, which is called private cloud. And then connected to public cloud, which is like Azure. So Azure is a kind of public cloud, right? So having these all, resources, places together, we call it hybrid cloud. And we need to somehow find a way to control, to manage, to be able to actually control it in a good way. Beside that, we have hybrid cloud, we have edge, we have multi-cloud, and those definitions are basically when you have different clouds, or if you have a kind of like resources, devices as an edge network, or even you are using multi-public cloud. So those are the definition. But basically, the hybrid cloud is the what I've mentioned here. Computing environment is integrated to public, private cloud, or on-premise resources. In the other part, we have benefits. What kind of benefits we are getting if we use hybrid cloud? So it's offering a balance and flexibility. Yeah, and also in some cases, it's cost efficient and secure. So it's important that we understand in some cases, we cannot actually move everything, every resources or every services that we have on premise or in data center, private data center, to cloud. So we have to build this kind of hybrid environment. And in some cases, it's offering balance because you can leverage the low latency connection with your internal services or servers. And also you can leverage cloud, for example, for identity, right? Like Entra ID. So these combinations give you this flexibility, and in some cases, as I've mentioned, it's cost efficient. Also, we have some challenges, right? So if you check here, it's like complexity for the integration, because maybe you have some legacy resources, applications, and it's really hard to be able to connect them to some resources into cloud. And we have to think about them. And in some cases, we have some security and compliance concerns. So we need to understand what kind of problem we will face if we want to create that hybrid environment. So the third part, the third option that I've mentioned here, it's about cost management. So maybe you think, okay, we talked about cost in benefits, and also we are mentioning here about challenges. What's the problem? How benefits is it that we have challenges on cost side too? So basically, I'm going to explain soon about these differences, but as far as we have that flexibility or benefits on some part of this hybrid connection, we also have some challenges. So we need to understand what kind of challenges we are going to face. Before I start the main part, I want to mention something here, which is really cool. I don't know you guys how much you are familiar with Gartner reports, but Gartner is a big institute that they are measuring different things in different topics. And basically, they are generating these kind of reports based on different topics that shows who is the leader of specific topics. So here, Azure playing a big role. So it's the leader basically in hybrid environment. And how Gartner is measured, and just so you know, this is a report generated for 2023. So there are some different things that Gartner used to measure, those objects or those companies. Here, regarding hybrid environment, they have measure on integration and type of the distribution capability, or how you can leverage the management portal, or infrastructure deployment, multi-location infrastructure as code, and also ability of orchestration for bare metal servers. So with those objects, or let's say items that they are measuring things, they reported or generated this report, and Microsoft is the leader of a hybrid environment. And it means right now we can call Azure the king of hybrid environment, and it really is, because you have a lot of services together. I'm talking about Azure Stack HCI, Azure Stack Hub, HCI, or like Azure Arc, Kubernetes clusters, type of the connection like VPN. Also, we have virtual WAN, and all of those things, resources together, helps us to be able to use different way of the connectivity and connection. And this is the flexibility that we can get from Azure services. And it's really great. That's why we call Azure king of hybrid environments. So now we need, since we understand what is the hybrid environment and how we can, use that, basically, I'm going to talk about 4 different aspects of key strategies. And basically, these strategies help you to use Azure Arc, or let's say hybrid environment inside Azure in a good way, in the best way. So these strategies that I defined here are based on Microsoft documentation, my experience on all of those things that I've faced during these many years. So here we have seamless integration. So it's all about tool services that we can use in Azure for the integration between on-premise and clouds. And it's really important because Microsoft providing a lot of services here. And then I'm going to talk about successful migration. So maybe you already have this question in your mind: why successful migration? Why we are need to talk about migration here? But yeah, I'll tell you why very soon. But Here, I'm going to talk about best practices, planning for best way of executing migration on Azure. And then we will continue on control and compliance for different methods of security, compliance, governance on a hybrid environment. And then I'll tell you about some continuous expanding knowledge, tools, and other things that you can use as a key strategy for your hybrid environment. Let's begin with the first one. As I've mentioned, hybrid environment, it's like having data centers or like private data centers, on-premise resources in your office, different branch offices. Maybe you have Kubernetes clusters, and also you have maybe Google Cloud, GCP, or AWS. And basically, when you have everything on Azure side as a resource, basically it's really easy because you have some services or methods for security or management, compliance, monitoring, and so on. It's pretty flexible. You have a lot of things here, right? But when you have everything, or let's say most of the things in your environment, on-premise environment, then you should have the same things there, included management, security, monitoring, compliance, and also update management, right? But the most important part is if you have different resources in different places, distributed, I don't know, across countries, cities, and so on. So you need to have different applications, sometimes for different compliance system to be able, to be applied on different cloud, different resources, either in on-premise environment, clusters, or in AWS or Google Cloud. So you need to find a way to manage them, to be able to control this chaos, because you are not going to buy different applications to be able to control them, right? So here we need to build a bridge between Azure Cloud, that you have all of those cool services and for monitoring, for compliance, and so on. And then if you can create that bridge, so you can leverage all of those cool things and bring it to your on-premise, or let's say non-Azure resources. So by creating that bridge, you can put all of these things together and make sure that you have all of these options inside Azure, and you can control it in one place. So in Azure world, in cloud, hybrid cloud for Azure, we have a service that we call it Azure Arc. The good thing is already Vim explained one of the most important part of Azure Arc, which is extend security update. And also he very simply explain how you can onboard your servers, how you can leverage Azure Arc for different purposes. So basically, I'm not going to explain that part because we already learned about that. And if I were you, I will watch that session, that part of this session for today again, because he explained a lot of good things that you need to learn about Azure Arc, and it helps you a lot to understand Azure Arc. But here I'm going to explain the strategy part. So to understand,
Saeid,
yes,
we actually got a question here from the audience. So we got a question from Ruchi, who says, what are the key Azure tools and services recommended for managing hybrid environment?
Very soon. Very soon I explained that. So we can start with Azure Arc, but they have to be patient with me. So I'm going to explain that very soon, what kind of tools and resources you can use. And those resources, those tools will help you. And also, it's not the things that you can hear from a lot of places or by Googling, but I'm going to explain more things about that kind of tools and resources. So yeah, be patient. Let's back to the presentation, Azure Arc. So this is the main architectural plan, or let's say diagram of Azure Arc, and all of those ability and options that you have with Azure Arc. I had a session yesterday in Azure Skåne about Azure Arc, and one of the audience mentioned about the good things that I forgot, and I think Microsoft will going to add this item into this diagram, which is related to AI part and Copilot, but I will explain it very soon. So to understand this diagram, I want to start from bottom to top, so we can go through this diagram part by part and understand it very well, because it's important we understand it. So what kind of environment resources to support with Azure Arc? So Azure Stack HCI, VMware, cloud platform like AWS and Google, so you can connect your resources from these places, these environments, this platform to Azure Arc. You can onboard your servers, as Veeam already showed you in last session. So it's really important that you know you have a lot of flexibility here. So what kind of resources, as I mentioned? Servers, Kubernetes, SQL servers, and you can use for a lot of things. You can onboard it and then leverage Azure Arc on your on-premise. But what kind of services? So as soon as, this is the important part, as soon as you onboard your resources from on-premise data center, I don't know, other clouds to Azure, they can be active inside Azure as a kind of Azure resource. So you can see them in Azure Arc, and since they are be part of Azure Resource Management, so you can control, you can manage, and you can act with those resources as much as you can do with your real Azure resources. So for example, if you onboard your server, you have a lot of options to control your servers there. From security, update management, configuration management, and so on. And also you have a lot of flexibility to control your server from cloud. If you want to have SSH, if you want to connect with Bastion, or if you want to, for example, use Admin Center, Windows Admin Center from cloud. So it doesn't matter, these servers distributed across world. So basically you can reach to them easily with those kind of action, because it's a part of Azure Resource Manager. And also, if you are familiar with Kubernetes cluster inside Azure called AKS, basically you have all of those options about AKS, and you can leverage that and use that inside your on-premise Kubernetes. Very cool, right? And as soon as you onboard it and you have those options, let's say using Azure Stack HCI, you can leverage some services and put them inside your local data center or in your on-premise. For example, you can use that for function app. In some cases, maybe you need to deploy kind of function app or logic apps and be able to, use your resources instead of, I'm talking about compute resources. So instead of having those compute resources for function app or let's say a logic apps inside cloud, inside Azure, you can use your on-premise resources to implement those kind of applications or logic apps. So it's really cool. Plus API management, service bus. So you have even machine learning option into your environment. So you can connect machine learning and also machine learning to your Kubernetes. So that's really cool. One thing that I would like to mention, since you can onboard your resources to cloud, you have this option to use Azure options, Azure services for your resources, which is Azure policy, tagging, log analytics, for monitoring, security, assessment, and it's pretty cool. So you can make sure without having any problem, without needing any third-party application, you can control your environment with one single plane of the management. So it's really important that we understand that what kind of role Azure Arc is going to play for our environment, our hybrid environment. So Wim just explained how much extended security update is important. In some cases, you need to continue with your Windows 2012. So he showed us how we can leverage Azure Arc to extend security update on those machines. So it's really important. And beside that, all of those security things, instead of having like third-party application to control security and compliance in your environment, you can easily leverage Azure Arc to be able to use main compliance that you already have on Azure Arc, on Azure environment, and use Azure Arc to apply it in your on-premise environment. So Azure Arc, it's a kind of Swiss Army, knife. So basically, you have a lot of tools included Azure Arc, and you can use that for many type of connections. So one thing that I would like to mention about connection, if you want to use public endpoint, it's pretty easy because you do not need to open any type of port based on your firewall to your on-premise environment. So what you can do, you just need to make sure that server that you want to onboard to Azure Arc has access to internet. So Azure Arc, by the script from Azure Arc, you can install the agent, and the agent communicate to your Azure Arc with only outbound connection. So it's pretty secure. And on top of that, if you want, you can use private connection to make sure those connection goes through your private link instead of having on like public link. Basically, if I explain that public endpoint is pretty secure, but also you have this private option as well. So what kind of Azure Arc things we have here? We have Azure Arc Resource Breach, which is basically for Azure Stack HCI, VMware. So you can use that. It's a kind of VM that you can install in your environment. And then you can leverage that VM and all of those features as a connection to your environment. And then basically you can use that to, for example, control your VMware, like scaling your VMs, adding, removing, or update some VM connection, VM instance. So that one is pretty much part of the Azure Arc when we want to control an enterprise solution like Azure Stack HCI. Beside that, we have Azure Arc enabled servers, which we can onboard single server or multi-servers to Azure, and we can leverage Azure Arc service to control or manage those servers. We have Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes, which is specifically for Kubernetes clusters, and it's very cool feature specifically for developers, so they can make sure that they can continue innovation in your application, in their applications, and it's really important. So the other one is Arc enabled data services. So that part is related how we can use Azure services like function app, logic apps, and even controlling some database things inside your on-premise from Azure. And also we have Azure SQL Server enabled. This one is very cool because you can have assessment based on the security and assessment on your SQL servers. So it's really important that if we can onboard our SQL servers to Azure and by Azure Arc, and it helps us to monitor and make sure our SQL servers continue on the good way and compliance way that we are looking for. So I'm not going to deep dive to Azure Arc because it's a different word, and today I'm going to talk about strategies. So for now, this is about Azure Arc, but we will continue on that very soon. But in terms of seamless integration, we have connection part. So we already heard about express throat, VPN connection, or private endpoint. But what else? What we can do? How we can use different resources? So when it comes to the connection part, we have more things here. For example, we have Azure Hybrid Connection. We can create an agent, and then based on that, for example, connected to a VNet, and VNet is connected to a function app, and that function app can call or send the request inside our on-premise environment. So it's really cool. Instead of having a public connection or exposed, for example, a SQL server to a public endpoint, we can use Azure Hybrid Connection and make sure that we can send the request in a private and secure way to our SQL server. Beside that, we have Azure Azure Arc Agent for Azure Automation. This one is very helpful. So if you want to run some automation inside your on-premise environment, or even you want to leverage Azure Automation, but you do not want to use Azure Automation Sandbox, basically you can use Azure Agent for Azure Automation, Azure Arc Agent for Azure Automation, and then run your code based on PowerShell or Python on your on-premise environment. And it's very helpful if you have some resources. Imagine Exchange, right? Exchange server, and you want to do some changes on your Exchange server, or if you want to have some automation based on those Exchange servers that you have in your environment. So you can onboard them to Azure Arc first, install the Azure Automation agent, and then inside Azure Automation, you can easily push your code to that servers, and it's very cool. The other part is about intra-ID sync and also SSO. So we have, in some cases, we need to think about RAID of those legacy or old application or methods. One of them is Active Directory Federation Service. So if you are able to basically move from ADFS to Azure SSO, that's a good way to manage, or let's say control those chaos, because intra-ID gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of single sign-on, which is kind of part of that, doing the same things as Active Directory Federation Service. So in terms of identity and sync from your on-premise to cloud, you have this option too. So you can sync your Active Directory, local Active Directory, and then you can actually move from the old way of the authentication authorization or making the SSO connection to cloud, which is pretty cool, right? So let's jump to the next one, which is successful migration strategy. You may think, okay, why we should talk about migration? And it's important. Why? Because migration to gather hybrid environment, it's very important part, and we need to think about that. I'll explain it to you very easy. Okay, here we have two web application server. This is our on-premise environment. Imagine that. So we have two application servers, SQL databases and SQL servers. We have load balancer, we have firewall here, and estimated cost over 5 years for us is $172,000. Okay, and it's a lot, right? But how we can, use cloud for that? So let's kind of refactor that solution. Now we have Azure app and also connected to an Azure SQL server databases. Doesn't matter which type of the instance or databases we are going to have. So first of all, do we need a load balancer for that? Nope. Do we need to have different servers to support like scaling process if we have more load on our application? No, because we can easily scale out, scale up, scale in, scale down on our application. And okay, good. How much is cost? with same estimation, $42,000 after 5 years. How much we can save? $130,000. So this is the part that I'm talking about, migration. Sometimes we need to change our mind about the applications, about the services. Here I have three most important parts. In next session, I believe Timmy will talk about cloud adoption and also maybe well-architected framework. And yeah, we have a lot of steps when it comes to the migration part, but I just want to focus on this part, which is modernization, migrate, and innovation. So when we are talking about innovate, migrate, and modernization, we start from somewhere, right? And this is the start point. We should start with questions, and it's really important. Application is still aligned with business goal. This should be the first question. So it's a kind of flowchart, right? Let's through the answer with no. The next question should be, is it still business relevant application? If no, remove it. Say it's retired. Just ignore it, because you shouldn't spend a lot of time and money for that. And if it's yes, so is it kind of CEST or SaaS alternative available? For those that they don't know about CEST, it's commercial off the shelf. So it means if you can leverage like SaaS environment for that. If no, okay, let's do a re-architecting or rebuilding. So for re-architecting, it's like extend, optimize the architect for cloud capability and scale. And for rebuilding, we have the code based on using cloud native. That's good, right? And if yes, so replace it, easy. If you have SharePoint on your on-premise, replace it with SharePoint Online. That's the point. And then we have this the other part, which is compatible with platform as a service or not. If no, then we have to rehost. It means replace the application with SaaS or low-code solution, or sorry, that's the replacing. Move it to cloud. For example, if you have a VM that you cannot leverage the platform as a service, then move it to cloud to save some money. It depends if it's really need to do that. And if yes, if it's you can find the alternative solution. So we need to do a replatform. So for the replatforming, it means, okay, what I just explained. Ignore that application and move to cloud, right? And use platform as a service instead of that. I have this diagram here. So it helps you to understand if you want to choose the right service for your environment, which is, to be honest here, I just want to focus on the migrate part. So you can start from start point and then continue with services, how and you can use Microsoft diagram for this Microsoft diagram to understand which service is the best way to basically achieve that goal if you want to migrate to cloud. Yes, so that's why I'm saying sometimes instead of connecting your hybrid environment, your on-premise environment to cloud and find some way to control that chaos, you need to move to cloud, migrate to cloud to control that. Yes. Jump to another part, security. So when it comes to security part, security and compliance, we have control, we have security, we have compliance, right? We have some needs and expectations. About needs and expectation, so when it comes to the control part, we need single pane of glass management, easy to onboard, easy to scalable. We need good monitoring service. Also, when it comes to security, we should be able to easily push the security updates. It should be enough flexible. It should be reliable. And then when it comes to compliance side, it should be enough fast. You should have one place to control all of those compliance rules and policies. So how we can control that? One answer. We have Azure Arc. So it's the main tools that you can use that. You can onboard your environment to Azure, and then since it's inside Azure, then you can use your policy governance, all things that you have there inside your on-premise environment. So it's pretty important that we see how we can leverage Azure Arc in our environment. I got a question several months ago from one of my friends. He said, we have only 20 servers in our environment. Should I use Azure Arc? To be honest, if you have only 2 servers in your environment, I suggest you to use that. Why? Onboarding servers to Azure Arc, it's harmless because it's free. So onboard it to Cloud, start with some small part, like if you want to use security part, if you want to use configuration management, update management, which is super important. And if it's 2012 version of the OS, yeah, use extend security update. That's the point. So Azure Arc gives you this flexibility to be able to push all of those security and compliance to your on-premise or other clouds environment. And then you have Azure monitoring, which is, fabulous, because Azure monitoring by itself, it's really great. And if you can use it for your on-premise environment, it's more than great, right? So don't miss that part even 1 minute. And this part, continuous improvement. Okay, I have to focus here. So listen to me. This part is super important. If you don't want to learn about, these technologies, if you don't want to improve your environment in your knowledge, then you cannot help your organization to be able to control this Tame in your environment. So, the chaos in your environment. So how we can do that? Easily. We have, when it comes to the knowledge part, understanding, continuous learning. For understanding, go and learn about hybrid cloud architect, networking and connectivity, security and identity, data management and integration, management and governance. And all of those things together comes inside the, for example, AZ305 exam certification. So you can easily learn about all of these aspects. Plus, of course, you need to learn more, because when we are talking about hybrid environment, normally it's like an organization, I don't know, with more than maybe 100 servers or less, doesn't matter. You can start from somewhere. And it's really important. And then the next part is continuous learning. So check Microsoft Learn documentation, start, for example, all of those challenges Microsoft always provide to you. And even you have, for example, applied skills, which is really cool. Join to that type of certification, but it's a kind based on, hands-on experience environment, and it helps you to understand many things. And also take courses, communities, forums, and try to test it. And it's super important. So you need to keep yourself updated to be able to understand those problems and use Azure resources, because Microsoft updating services time to time, right? And nowadays we are talking about AI. So one thing that I wanted to mention, for example, about Azure Arc, very soon we will have Copilot for Azure. And when we are talking about Copilot for Azure, it means we can control even Azure Arc or on-premise resources with Copilot. And it's very cool. So we need to understand AI as well. And AI is feature, and feature is happening now. So go and learn about that too. When it comes to tools, I have 4 main things when it comes to let's say, hybrid environment and migration. The first one is Microsoft Assessment Tools, which is really cool. So you can easily assess your environment, your current environment, based on those questions to make sure that you are ready for any type of migration, or even you need to do some rehost, refactoring, and so on. It helps you a lot. Then we have Azure Migration Tool, which is help you to understand if you can move your workload to Azure, and it gives you a lot of information. The other part is Azure Calculator, TCO. So TCO is a bit different than the normal calculator. So TCO is like total cost of ownership. So if you have those resources in your environment, in your on-premise environment, and you want to calculate how much is you are going to save if you move to cloud, so you have to use this calculator. Sometimes maybe you need to move from cloud, and you need to ignore or remove those hassle that you have already in on-premise environment. And the last one, I have it here, Jumpstart. So if you would like to test Azure Azure Arc, Jumpstart is the great project. So it can simulate Azure Arc environment for you. So you can just deploy that inside Azure, and it's going to simulate and make it ready to start your test, evaluate the Azure Arc. And it gives you a lot of flexibility to test Azure Arc, because I got questions from my friends. Hey, it's really hard. We don't have that much resources to have hybrid environment to test Azure Arc. What we should do? And the answer is Jumpstart. So these 4 links that I've put here are the things that you can use as tools for your environment. Beside that, the services that I already mentioned, and Azure Arc is top of that. So yeah, hope you no slides. Okay, let's see. I made it ready, but seems yep.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Okay. Now it's better now. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. We have some questions here from the audience.
Yeah, sure.
So first question here is from Ruchi, who says, what are the key Azure tools and services recommended for managing hybrid environments? Yeah, so.
Yeah, the main tools that I can suggest that is Azure Arc, because Azure Arc is the one place that you can have many things in terms of security, compliance, control your environment, monitoring, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. So Azure Arc is the first one. But when it comes to like connection, I already mentioned about that. It can be Azure VPN, or if you want to use virtual WAN, which gives you a very flexibility. If you have different branch offices, you want to have one environment to be able to connect all of those connections, branch offices, on-premise environment together. Azure Virtual WAN is the greatest place to do that. And then some other resources, for example, Azure Relay Connection, which is great if you want to connect application services to your environment by the agent. And yeah, those are the main tools that we can use and connect, or let's say remove complexity from our environment.
Okay. And we have next question also from Ruchi. How does Azure support disaster recovery and business continuity in hybrid environments? And what are the configurations recommended?
Yeah. So when it comes to disaster recovery, the reason that I didn't mention it here, because it's part of the compliance and security, right? We need to make sure that we can, have our services available if something happens. So Azure Disaster Recovery, it's a great solution to make sure that you have your on-premise environment in somewhere in cloud. If something happened, you can easily, revert, or let's say fix the problem in one click, I would say. So it's a great solution. So yeah, disaster recovery, it's one of the tools, but we are talking about business continuity. So it's part of the security, and the part that what are the configuration recommended for such setup. Okay, yeah, when it comes to the configuration, what I can suggest here, when you have different environment, you should go through based on region things. So if you have a big organization, first of all, you have to go through the backup, things that you can make sure you can restore your data easily. But if you have some specific resources, different region that you can make sure restore your data, or let's say recovery your resources based on region, you can configure it based on that part, right? So that configuration part is really depends on how you want to go through the recovery process. But basically, yeah, disaster recovery is the main part for business continuity.
Okay. Another question here from Anirban. What is the way to onboard on-prem services to Azure Arc if the internet access is stopped due to security reason?
Yeah. So one of the way that we can onboard, I don't know if Anirban means that if you don't have internet at all, or if you have access to internet, some different way. So you can use proxy. You're able to use proxy to onboard your servers. Also, there is some solution because Azure Arc in some type supports a disconnected solution. So you can onboard your server, let's say your services, specifically when it comes to the data servers or SQL databases. You can use disconnected scenario to make sure you do not need to connection to have your service on Azure Arc. But one of the way that you can do that, you can leverage resource breach. So resource breach is a kind of scenario that you can use for this kind of situation. So resource breach is acting as a main breach to your resources and to Azure Arc.
Okay. Yes, a couple of more questions. What is the alternative to onboard on-prem services which can't have public internet connection?
Yeah, I think it's the same question.
Okay. Yes, and what are best practices for data management in Azure hybrid environments?
Yeah, so for data management, I would suggest to check Azure Data Service, Azure Arc Data Service. And basically, that part helps you to understand how you can leverage Azure Arc to control your, SQL data inside your on-premise environment. Beside that, of course, for the data part, you have other things. But one thing that I would like to mention, if you are able to move your SQL databases, data into cloud, so it's a kind of part that I just mentioned about migration. So maybe it's the time you check if you can move it to the cloud. But in sometimes maybe you cannot do that. Then you can use Azure Arc, or even you can basically use some internal data connection. But it depends what you want to do. But the best way of the performance optimization and scalability is Azure Arc.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's that's it. Yeah, we had one more question. What's the exam code of the certification? I believe that was the Azure Architect. That's AC 305.
Yeah, because we don't have a specific exam for Azure Arc or hybrid environment, but 305, AZ 305, it's a complete, because it's a solution architect, you need to learn about all of these things, right? So 305 is the best one.
Yes. Okay, I think with that, we thank you so much for a wonderful session. Now we'll take a break here, and we will soon be back with next session, which is the key to success in your journey to the cloud with Microsoft Cloud Adaptation Framework with Timmy Malmgren.
Yeah.
So see you all soon.
Yeah.
And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Yes, so welcome back again.
Yes, welcome back to our session and after the break as well. And thank you so much for Saeid for the amazing questions. I mean, great session and the amazing session questions from the audience. Yes. So, how are you finding it so far, Håkan? It's been like
It's
learning a lot.
a learning experience here.
Yes.
And we got some feedback here from the audience that we can share here.
Yes.
From Hiren, who says that it's a very good knowledge sharing
Yes.
from Saeid, and also from Ruchi, who
Mhm.
says thank you so much for the answers. You're very
Yeah.
insightful. And we also got
Yes.
a visitor here from Kenya. Hi,
Mm.
Global Azure, Kevin turning in from Kenya.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, I've been learning a lot, and I think definitely I'm going to redo watching our recording. Great session so far from Wim and Side. So thank you so much for joining us this weekend. And the last but not the least, we have an amazing session and topic coming up from a speaker and an Azure expert in this topic within Sweden. So it's great that we have speakers, two speakers from the country, of course. So are we ready
Yes,
to
l-
to bring him
let's
in
let's
and
welcome
welcome him?
here Timmy
Hello.
Malmgren.
Thank you.
Hello,
Yeah,
How are you
welcome
doing
Timmy.
today?
I'm doing fine. I've been looking at the previous session also, checking in on Wim and Said. Hopefully, my session is gonna put Said out of work now when there will be no chaos in Azure anymore.
Yeah, all the topics actually we have today is a lot of focus on like it kind of align with each other, and I like it. And cloud adoption framework is something that is very important as well in terms of migration to cloud, regardless of what it is, hybrid, multi-cloud, or a mix.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're looking at a lot of cool technical stuff. So now we're gonna look at how do I even get to those cool technical stuff.
Yes. Yeah, and we are always extra happy when we have speakers from Sweden. Even though we're not speaking Swedish in the session, but we're glad to have you. Can you share a bit from, I mean, to our audience, where are you joining us from Sweden, and a bit about interesting fact about where you live, if you could share.
Yeah, so I live in a city called Örebro. There's nothing really interesting about that city. We have a beautiful castle, but that's pretty
Yes.
much it.
I've been to that castle. I spoke in a conference with Scott Hanselman and other
Oh yeah,
speakers. But it's a beautiful castle. I've seen the sunset and the colorful color like horizons during the summertime. So
yeah,
that's a good place to visit in Örebro.
yeah. We also have a bit of tech companies in
Yeah,
Örebro. It's pretty tight with tech companies and developers. So
yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. Do you want to share your presentation so we
yeah,
can get started? Let's see.
see if
Let's
it's
do
popping up.
that. Did you have anything else to say, Håkan?
No, yes, looking forward here to your session, Timmy.
Yes, and feel free to ask questions anytime. I mean, anytime, and Timmy will answer it at the end. And tune in at the final part as well, because Håkan and I will do like a retrospective of the sessions for the day, and we will be sharing about the sponsors, gifts, and giveaways from Global Azure community. So feel free to stay tuned at the end with us. All right, go ahead, Timmy, rock the stage.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, welcome to my session on how to succeed in your adoption journey to Azure. Obviously, there are frameworks for other cloud providers as well, but I will be focusing on Azure. I hope you're enjoying Global Azure so far. I've been watching a lot of sessions from all over the world. It has been super interesting. My name is Timmy, as you heard before, and I'm working at the tech company called ITEA. I have about 18 years of experience in Microsoft and working with IT. I just got out of school and jumped straight into IT. Started out as a client technician working with the System Center, And later, I kind of leaned more to the server and infrastructure part. But eventually, I found my passion in Azure infrastructure security, and I love helping customers getting the most out of Azure. So cloud adoption journeys are a big part of my passion. But let's get straight to the agenda. The agenda is I'll be covering this as a more non-technical introduction to these concepts, which mean there won't be as much heavy on the technical side. There will be more soft parts and me talking a lot, so prepare for that. I will be looking into what is actually Cloud Adoption Framework. And for me, I kind of almost always put Cloud Adoption Framework, well-architected framework, and the Azure Landing Zone architecture together, as they kind of entangle into each other. And I really think you should use them all in coherent with each other. So I will be covering a little about the well-architected framework and the Azure Landing Zone architecture also. And the landing zone architecture is where we will get a little technical, but I'm not going to go too deep into these details. I will also cover a little of why I think you should use Cloud Adoption Framework. I will talk about some practical application in the sense of how, my opinion, how I have been using it, what benefits I have gotten from it, and what customers have gotten from it, how it actually works in a practical sense. I will take some examples shortly of use cases where we have made an adoption journey and what benefits we have gotten from using these kind of frameworks. And a little story about the customer, but leaving out the names. I will also cover a little of the tools and templates and infrastructure as code parts of the Cloud Adoption Framework or the Azure Landing Zone architecture. All in all, that's pretty much the agenda of today. So usually when we start thinking and looking at any cloud provider, really, but I will always use Azure as an example in this case, we probably ask ourselves a little in the line with what could I get out of Azure, or how can I utilize Azure? And when we start asking those questions, it's very usually, next question is, where do I even start? Because many of you might have been a part of cloud adoption journeys before, and you know that it can be kind of a large challenge to take on. And if you're unfamiliar with the concept of working in a cloud environment, it can be even more challenging to take on. So while we might be set in our ways to working on-prem, and we might be expert in that area, we are very proficient in it. But moving to the cloud, all those expertise are not necessarily one-to-one transferable, which means, in my experience, many customers have seen Azure as just another on-premise location. And if you treat this as such, you will not get all the benefits of Azure. And whether the reason is you're looking for more flexibility, scalability, or you're looking for the agility of deployment, it still poses a challenge to move there. And we have another challenge, which is custom billing works differently. If you're used to working on premise, you usually consider like a 3 to 7 year utilizations plan for your data center, depending on how your lifecycle management and how much money you put into replacing your equipment. But the difference in Azure is we can spin up resources at the go, we can shut them down, we can just wipe them and redeploy them. And that gives another kind of custom billing optimization. So some of Azure's greatest strength, like its agility and its ease of use, quotation on that because it's still a complex environment, but you can, with the press of a button, you can just link two VNets together. It takes seconds, and that can also be a great challenge. Because how do we keep security while maintaining such an agile way of working? And when I started with this, there was they said to me, like, imagine just the possibility of having each developer having the key to manage their applications layer all the way up to the network layer of their application. And I did imagine that. And if you're a little like me and you want to keep control and you don't really trust everyone else, you probably imagine something along with the lines of a post-apocalyptic wasteland that used to be your IT environment, like system engineer and developers are running wild, turning your firewall into switch keys, giving security rights left and right. And that can be scary. My blood pressure increased while thinking about it. But it doesn't have to be really like that. Because nowadays we have great framework and knowledge that we can actually use to offer a great agility and deployment strategies and all that in our environment, but still keeping it secure. So that is what we're going to look on. I'm going to start with a short summary of Cloud Adoption Framework, well-architected framework, and enterprise scale before we actually look into how these work in a more applicable way. So Cloud Adoption Framework, if I should summarize it, is kind of like a large lifecycle management framework that its key is to move you from on-premise to a cloud environment, working within that cloud environment and maintaining it and help you reach your goal with actually moving to Azure. It contains the platform design, which is the Azure landing zone architecture, formerly known as enterprise scale, if you heard about that. It also helps you ensure that you utilize Azure in a good way. And we're going to talk about where Cloud Adoption Framework begin and where well-architected framework ends. So to do this, Cloud Adoption Framework covers a lot of technical parts, like how the platform should look. Like I said, the Azure landing zone architecture, the policies you need, network, migration plan, but it also covers the more non-technical things like strategy, planning, creating new teams, setting clear responsibilities, and ensuring that whoever is going to be responsible and receive this new platform is ready and up for this task with skill readiness. I'm pretty sure many of you who have worked in an IT department of sort are well familiar with the concept that usually we just get thrown things in our knee without really being prepared for them, and sometimes you need to learn as you go. Cloud Adoption Framework tries to switch this over so you ensure that you're already prepared once you received the new technical platform. Because an agile platform like Azure is kind of difficult to manage if you're not already there on the right skill readiness. Because if it starts to grow organically without the right skill and management, it can really get out of hand fast. And well-architected framework. While it's also a framework consisting of different guidelines and principles to help you design these different things, it focuses more on when you have landed in Azure and are done with the migration. So this is more focused on the constantly improving and the deployment of new system to match its 5 pillars, which is cost optimization, security, reliability, operational excellence, and performance efficiency. So both these frameworks are very, very relevant when it comes to cloud migration, but they have a slightly different scope, as I said. They will intertwine with each other and overlap, and you should definitely use both if you're using one, according to me, and as well as using the landing zone architecture. So one key concept that they have together, of course, is the Azure landing zone architecture. It kind of sets the design and the whole premise for this framework to work with. And you also have a key tool when it comes to the well-architected framework. It's called well-architected review. It's kind of a self-assessment tool that you can use to measure how you align with these 5 pillars. You get kind of a gamification of it, bad, good, excellent, and so on. Short about the landing zone architecture. This is the more technical part, obviously, because it's the platform that we're building and landing on. It was formerly known as Enterprise Scale, but has changed name to Landing Zone Architecture. If you're familiar with Enterprise Scale, you know it's the same thing, but it's constantly evolving. Together with the Landing Zone Architecture, you get a set of guides and critical decisions that you need to do together with Cloud Adoption Framework. You get the architecture, which is the platform itself, and it's a modular platform, which means you don't need to use all parts if you don't have a use case for it. It is segmented in different areas. So we have a platform area and a landing zone area as our big legs to stand on. In the platform area, we will segment the management, the identity, and the connection parts. So, for example, in the identity, I would place my, say, domain controllers if I had a hybrid environment and wanted those. In the connection area, I would put my DNS, my firewall, my central hub network if I have a network configured in Azure. On the landing zone area is where all the application resides. We also have 2 legs here to stand on. There is also 2 new legs for sovereignty. We're not going to cover those at this part, but it's really the same, but a stricter kind of corp and online leg. So we got the corp leg, which is your corporate network, you could call it. Here you reside all applications. That's not going to be directly put out on the internet. They can still have an internet connection, but you need to put a firewall or something in between them and the internet and route the traffic through there. The online part, you will be more free to put, say, a web app that maybe has just a public IP straight out on the internet. And to enforce these things and help you protect it, there's also a lot of policies and governance around these different areas in Azure, which mean I actually can't put a public IP on a corp computer. It doesn't matter if I'm global admin and owner through all the subscription. I can't do it unless I actually delete that policy or make an exemption for this specific. So it helps you also to ensure you're not making human errors, human mistake. You might not think completely true when making a decision that, oh, this VM needs to have internet access. I'm just going to put on a public IP address, no worries. But you can't do it. We have a decommissioned and sandbox area also. Sandboxes is mainly for your technicians needing a place to play, building a test environment and testing different areas. They get their own little sandbox to work in. Decommissioned is mainly used for, okay, I want to remove a system, but I want to save it for a while. I shut everything down and I move it to decommission and let it rest there for a while. So that's the main structure of the landing zone architecture. And this is a very technical part, and we could talk about this for hours, but we're not going to do that. We're going to keep going, actually. The entire framework is built around a few different main areas that Cloud Adoption Framework and Enterprise Scale design decisions are built upon. And all these templates and tools that Cloud Adoption Framework provides with you, all the things we would be deciding and look upon is also split into these different areas. Each of these different areas has a ton of subset of areas that we're not going to talk about. But I'm going to shortly tell you about these areas. So Azure building an Active Directory, which is now Entra, apparently that picture hasn't been changed, my bad, is the focus on proper tenant creation. We need to enroll subscriptions. Are we going to use EA, CSP? Are we going to use multiple CSP? And billing setup and those parts. So those are the tenant startup areas, so to say. We have resource organization. This area covers a lot of things like naming, tagging, subscription design, your management group design. So it's more of a structural organization part for your resources. Identity and access management, maybe it speaks for itself, but obviously that's how you build RBAC, and you have your identity management and those part in that for both the platform and the application, building roles, building security rights, and so on. It's also how you should access your different applications and platform. Network topology, pretty much the same. Azure Landing Zone is offering a hub and spoke model as a concept, and it's all this network decision involved in that, like, do I need a firewall in the cloud? Yes. What firewall should I use? Do I need a private DNS resolver? Will I have a hybrid connection? What hybrid connection will I use? And so on. During all this, we have the platform and automation and DevOps, obviously, aligning beneath all of them. Because if we're going to run infrastructure as code, this needs to be thoroughly with all different pillars. Obviously, security, governance, and management is the ongoing process that we will never get rid of, and we should never get rid of. It's the part about maintaining and is constantly evaluating these very important part of your IT environment. And now we get to the biggest part. So this is really how we set up the cloud adoption framework and how the flow works and how the different phases work. So each of these boxes on the top is a different phase. The boxes on the right, on the low, are from left to right, follow you throughout all these 4 phases. And some of these things might seem like, they're, of course, we know these things. We don't need to write them down, or we don't need documentation for this. But there are a few benefits of actually clearly understanding the motivations, whether you're a consultant or you work within the company. If you document and clearly understand your motivations for actually moving to the cloud, it's easier to align different applications to those motivators. So we start by understanding the motivators. If you're a consultant and not part of the company, this is very important to understand the company's need and motivators for why they're even doing this, if you want to help them assist with this. The business outcomes and business justification part is where we look at what do we want to get out that we can measure in a way. For instance, do I want to reduce cost? Okay, I can definitely measure cost. Do I want to get out some kind of security reason with more redundancy? Okay, I can look up to that, see how the old system looks and see how the new system looks. And documenting these different business outcomes and justifications clearly will also help you with the next part, which is the first prioritizing project. What system will we even start with? If you did your homework and did understand the motivators and you understand what the business outcomes and justifications are, you can look at systems that align very good with this. And you can then choose your first cloud adoption project. You can choose 1 to 3. There's really no problem in that. But obviously, moving 500 systems to Azure in a week is not going to be an option. So a prioritizing project is then set together with the strategy. Once this is done, we go over to the planning phase. And this is more like, now we start to look at the whole picture. We start to do the digital estate, which is we will inventory all our current assets to understand the environment better. If you're an internal IT organization, you probably have a decent check on your environment already. But as a consultant, it's very good to have this digital estate to actually start understanding this. And in this part, we're going to look at this digital estate and see, okay, can we optimize things here together with the system owners, of course. We're going to look at the parts that maybe this isn't using as much CPU as it has for it. So this VM, we can reduce it in size. Or maybe we're finding systems that are going to be replaced. We can refactor them. We don't have to lift VMs as they are. In fact, if you could, you should try not to do that. You should try to utilize the SaaS and PaaS services of Azure whenever it's possible. It can also be third-party applications replacing this. We will do the initial organization alignment, and this part is something that I usually see is skipped many times when we're not using the cloud adoption framework, and that is a cloud journey is very heavy on the technical aspect, right? We're going to build a whole new platform, and we're going to have a lot of people that need to learn a lot of new things, and we're going to manage this new platform. But it's also important to understand the human aspect of your organization if you're going to do that. You can build all the cool technical stuff in the world if you would like, but unless you can get people to utilize this, align with these technical, you're not really going to get any benefits of building this. You might get a more secure environment because you're building a really secure environment that no one can really work in. But understanding the human aspect of it and creating these teams and processes around this is super important, because it's also a bonding experience. When creating a team that's going to work together, instead of saying like, these are the developers, these are the operations technician, we start building cloud teams. And once we get to a team and work in workshops, we start to understand each other better, and we start to work more through a common goal. And this is also a process that have been very appreciated by customers, like building their own cloud of excellence teams and these things. And they have learned a lot about their own new platform and so on with this. And we're going to get to the skill readiness plan. And as I said, there are many times a gap, like in skill, where we don't have the necessary skills maybe to take care of a new Azure platform if we're not used to working in Azure or any other cloud provider. So here is where we check out, okay, what do we actually need to learn to be able to manage these things? We will book seminars, courses, studies, maybe certifications if needed. But we will also make a plan together with, if we're hiring in outside experts that's going to help us with this journey, we are going to look together how we also can benefit from this. If I'm an internal IT organization that's hiring in, say, some experts from outside, I want to be able to have this expert use the internal IT for some of the process, so they can also learn and understand their environment better. And during the cloud adoption framework, we ensure that we find all these gaps in knowledge and make sure we can align with them. After that, we have our cloud adoption plan. And this is the part where we start using all our strategy, all our goals, all documentation into a usable real action plan. So also have templates for this if you want to use Azure Board and things like that. Microsoft you can just import some plans and you can modify them and work with them. If you're not going to use Azure Boards, you're probably going to use some kind of other project management tools to build this plan and make sure you have identified all the challenges and also all the different parts that needs to be done. And now we're going to the ready phase, which doesn't mean we're ready, but it means we're gonna get ready. So this is where we start to look more hands-on on technical aspects. We start to prepare our Azure Landing Zone architecture design. There is a Azure Setup Guide from Microsoft, which you can definitely check out if you want to know more about how to prepare for an Azure Landing Zone architecture. But there's a lot of technical design aspects that comes into play now. And you need to decide on naming convention. You need to decide on all this access, what policies to use if you want to put your own policies as on top of this. You have to do the network deciding part, the billing part, the monitoring, the backup, the automation, and so on. And these areas are, like I said before, covered inside these frameworks. So you have a list of different things to go through with best practices and some help on how to get everything lined up. So they're split into main categories. Each main category have a lot of subset of categories with a lot of tools, templates, and best practices and guidelines to help you along the way. And now, when we have decided on all the technical aspects, we can finally start with the adoption journey. And this is the part where we set up our architecture, our first landing zone, according to all the design decision we did before. And we start with our first system or application. We decided this already in the prioritizing project. We will lift and shift it, refactor, or replace it entirely, depending on what we decided on. We will also here start to trigger along these modernizing aspects, like we talked about earlier, the well-architected framework. So the migrate, model stage, and innovate part starts to kick in here, because now we have something actually inside our Azure environment. So now we need to start with the lifecycle management parts. And this is when well-architected framework really kicks in. And you also had to keep up with these monetizing things and keep up with the skill part and the knowledge. And governance, security, management. With all the flexibility and scalability that and increasing freedom that Azure offers, it's important to have very well thought processes of how I manage security, risk insight, and manage business commitment and business risks. We have policy and compliance parts where we can actually check how well we are aligned with our policy and compliance part. And we get the secure posture as an easy overview. None of these tools tells you the entire picture of your IT environment, but they are great tools to use to get ahead overhead. Cloud Adoption Framework offers a lot of methodology and benchmarking tools for this, of course, and you should definitely keep those in mind and keep those close at heart when keeping up with your current environmental needs. So that's the process of how a Cloud Adoption Framework journey actually works. I'm going to talk a little about my practical experience with these kind of projects and what I think has been good about them. And since I'm talking so well about these things, I just want to point out I'm not a sales rep from Microsoft. I don't get paid, just so you know. But in my experience, one of the key things that have been always brought back to me from customer is the building of the team and the workshop we constantly do during out the journey. It has been such a great experience for them, they think, like they learn along the way together with you as the guiding experts. So defining all this framework and guidelines that the Cloud Adoption Framework does and handing them over to your customer, but helping them how to translate them is such a good methodology to work, because they don't feel like they are tied to constantly having an expert on their side, constantly having to hire consultants and experts left and right, because even though they might not themselves be completely expert, they have so much to rely on, to use. That doesn't mean you can't help them still with a few things every here and there and checking out on the environment and how it's going. The clear definition of responsibility might sound like a no-brainer, but there are so many times you get to a cloud adoption journey and you're going to help a customer and no one knows who is responsible for what. You spend at least 50% just looking for someone to be able to make a decision. And it's such a huge time waste to not have this clearly defined and documented before you start. Because if you have all this, as soon as a question arrives, as soon as you're getting stuck with something, you can always rely on all this documentation that you did before, all the planning and all the strategy parts, because you can always look at that and know, okay, you know what? I know who's going to answer this question for me. I know who's going to make this decision. And I can just go to that group or team, or if it's a single person. Another thing that's been really good is defining these cloud teams, because you set the team of people that are kind of responsible for all the acceleration and cloud adoption processes, which means you have a team dedicated to help you ensure that these frameworks are followed. They help the organization as a whole to use this, to optimize their function in Azure, and to review your current, policy alignments, secure posture, and all that. They also are the ones who should lead the innovation, like looking at new solution, keeping up to date with the knowledge and the process that is new for Azure or new functions. And the skill readiness has also been a very, very, very appreciated concept. Like if you go in as an Azure expert and help a customer, or if it's your own IT department, just all this interaction in this workshop where you help them understand all the technical aspects of Azure and how to actually work within Azure. As I said, all these guidelines and recommendations and best practices are also part of the framework, but it's such a big framework that I can't cover that part. I just want to cover the part about what it actually is and how to use it. I talked a lot about there would be tools and templates, and there's tons of them, to be honest. You have a lot of self-assessment tools. I always like gamification, and it's easy to point out to non-technical people to show you on a scale, this is bad. I got a 3 on this. The common is to get at least a 7. Always easy to understand. You got the documentation templates, and there's a lot of them too, and you don't need to use everything, and you can definitely reshape them to your fitting. It's just a lot of templates for identity governance, security, DevOps strategy, and planning decision to help you keep in line with everything you decided on from the beginning. We also have the opportunity to deploy the infrastructure as code. Should we like? We can use Terraform Modular Registry if we prefer Terraform, or we can use Microsoft either Biceps or PowerShell parts or even the Azure Resource Manager to deploy enterprise scale or Azure landing zone architecture. I myself is not very familiar with Terraform, so I haven't tried that part. I'm going to be honest. The other ones, all of them, I think work great. I've never had any real issue with the deployment. A little short about some use cases, but I feel like I want to share. This is just going to be very short about them. But I'm going to talk first about a very large global organization that spread all over the world. And They have been placed out with a lot of on-premises data center everywhere, and they kind of isolated from each other, so they don't really work that much in conjunction. This customer didn't really have any Azure experience when they started. They were just kind of forced out of their current data center for specific reasons. So when they started to think about this, they were like, okay, we're gonna be forced to leave. Do we build our own data center? Do we look to a provider to provide us with the data center? Or do we look to a drift partner that maybe can host our servers? But someone along the line, they started to think, well, maybe we should actually look at a cloud provider. We are so global in the way we work. We want to be able to work from anywhere. We want to be able to have this flexibility, this access part. They have a lot of internal developers also. So they were also interested in the DevOps part of and the agility of being able to have a very, very short release window. And we have did all this part with, I had the privilege to help them with this. It was super fun and interesting. And we did all these workshops and the training with the staff and all these parts. We had helped them with some onboarding processes for third-party applications and so on, because once you have done all these documented decisions, you can just lift out some of the part and use them as an onboarding process and give to a third party and say, these are our design decision in our environment that you actually have to follow. And the interesting part about this is years later, their environment is still in excellent condition, and they have a secure posture and policy compliance around 95 to 100%, pending up and down, depending on if you have security patches waiting or if you're implementing a new system. And this is actually from people who are still not experts on this field, but we have left them with so much framework and so much to fall back on when they're unsure. That doesn't mean they never ask questions or they never need help with anything anymore, but they have such a self-sufficient system now where they actually can act on most of the things without being completely experts on the field. Another case, it's kind of similar, but in the case that they were very early adopters to Azure. So they built an environment long time ago. And back then, we didn't have private endpoint or anything. So it's just a bunch of VMs technically having IP straight out on the internet with everyone is having their own NSG. And they have been just using Azure for decades like that, which is, not decades, but I don't know the English word for it. So skip that. But a long time. And what happened is they treat Azure as just an on-premise data center. And it gets out of design very fast. It doesn't follow any kind of compliance like NIST or things like that. And it don't utilize anything of Azure's potential, really. So we actually did half of the journey with them because they're already in Azure and they didn't have like the biggest environment. We just took a step back and we looked at the design decision and we set all the design decision together with them. And we actually didn't do much skill readiness. We just showed them the framework and explain how to work in Azure more. And then did a migration to what we call Azure 2.0, which is the new platform that follow the Azure landing zone architecture. And they also been able to keep their environment clean. It's not as long ago, so it hasn't been several years as in the other case. But at the same time they're not either experts in the field, but they can still keep up slightly with the new demands when following these kind of frameworks. And they have a good base to stand on. Yeah, and now the last question. No, but why should I use Cloud Adoption Framework? Yeah, why not? that's not the whole answer, obviously. But you can always consider, why build something completely from scratch when you have so much built already for you to stand upon? Use this as your foundation. You don't have to use all the documentation or all the templates, or you can use your variation of these boxes when you do your cloud adoption journey. But I definitely would recommend you to read up on the Cloud Adoption Framework, Well-Architected Framework, and Azure Landing Zone Architecture if you're not familiar with them. A big other plus to this is that it's constantly being evaluated and updated. There's a news, it has its own news page, and I think there was like 6 or 8 release points in March this year. So it's constantly being improved upon. And not many people have the resources that goes into these kinds of framework. It has been tested by, of course, by Microsoft, but also businesses and Azure experts all around the world. And they have been submitting input to Microsoft to constantly improve this. So that's why I think you should definitely look into using Cloud Adoption Framework, Well-Architected Framework, and the Azure Landing Zone Architecture as your foundation. And a short summary. So Cloud Adoption Framework, it's what will take you on your journey from the ground to the cloud in a secure, efficient way. You will have measurable results to follow. And Well-Architected Framework is what will make your stay optimized, pleasant, and keeping track on your decisions. Azure Landing Zone is kind of like the fancy hotel with the great design, maintaining a clean and secure environment for you to relax in. And also with the evil bouncer at the end who keeps people out. And you have a lot of whole set of tools, code, documentation, templates at your disposal. And just one more time, I'm not a Microsoft sales rep. If you would like to connect with me, talk about fun stuff, more technical stuff, here's my LinkedIn and my personal blog. If you want to check that out, you can just scan the codes. If you don't trust me and don't want to scan the codes, just search for my name in LinkedIn and you will find me and my blog. So thank you very much. I think that's the part where if there are any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Timmy. It's a really great session.
Yes, thank you so much.
We have a question here from Ruchi, who says, how does the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework recommend balancing cost management with innovation to ensure a successful cloud adoption journey?
If you're talking about how to balance cost contra how to build an effective environment, that's a difficult decision. And it doesn't really tell you specifically that you should always focus on cost more than innovation. It will give you the tools to measure cost, to keep track of your cost, and all those things. Really, that is the question you're asking is more of something you would have to decide together with the organization. What is most important to me? Building something expensive isn't necessarily bad.
Okay.
I hope that was the question you wanted to.
Yes, I hope that answered the question of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. We do have 3 more questions that came in. Actually, let me ask that. Good that everyone is asking now at the end. So Waleed, he asked, how would you optimize our cost in Azure? What tools are recommended, and how should we start our cost assessment?
Yeah, so optimizing cost in Azure, if we're new to this, I would look at the tools already available for us. Budget alerts, forecasting alerts, ensuring that you get these alerts to the right people. And if you're already in Azure and you feel like the budget and cost analysis parts of Azure native doesn't really fit your need, then you have to look at third party. But I'm gonna be impartial there and not recommend any of them. I'm just gonna say you have to do that reviewing for yourself.
Yes, I think we got a help answer from Wim, another speaker, first speaker.
Yeah.
He did also helped out that there's also Azure Advisor, Azure Cost
Exactly.
Management, and some workbooks also that everyone can use to get started. That's great. And we got one more, Håkan, right? Another
Yes,
question.
so we have
Yes.
one more question from Valid, who says, what tools should we use when we want to do a security assessment on our infrastructure and workloads?
If you want, if you're new, still would recommend checking out security posture with Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Also the policy compliance part. Review what kind of framework you will want to use, like if you want to use NIST or any other framework. Microsoft default have the security benchmark, which is a combination of many of these frameworks, all publicly available. And you can choose your own to deploy as a policy too. There are so many supported.
Yes, I think that's all the questions that we have. I do have one question that I thought I would ask live with the audience so they also hear your answer. Because we're in Sweden, right? I also speak a lot about Azure migration to the point that I wrote a book about it. But I'm curious, in Sweden, since you work as a Azure solution architect in your company, what is your experience and perspective in terms of IT organizations or companies moving to the cloud or to Azure? Are there still like, is it like increasing, or do you still see challenges there that organizations are not so sure, or the challenges that you see? I'm just curious to hear
Yes.
from your perspective
yeah.
without revealing the NDA that you might have. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to
Okay.
mention any customer.
Yes,
Not
yes.
a customer of me, but I'm going to mention company.
Yes.
The thing is, I think it's starting to actually increase because
Mhm.
we have the Skatteverket, it's called. It's like the
Mhm.
tax management part. And they have actually started to ease up on the rules about cloud usage. And there having been, so to say, many increased questions lately about Azure from other parts that were never thinking about it 2 years ago. So
Yes.
I think it's starting to ease up and actually increase.
That's good. We actually here in Sundsvall area, we have a Skatteverket is very huge here. I think in Norrland, and I know that they're still on-prem and they got Java as their backend. And I think Azure is also starting to support that language as well if there's a need. And otherwise, there's like containers or Azure Arc and all this CAF and WAF options to help them migrate. Yes. Thank you for answering that question. I have no questions. I think you did answer them. Did you see anything, Håkan, that we missed?
No, I asked that general question here to Timmy. So, in your experience, how well known is the cloud adoption framework among the general customers?
The general customer, I would say, it's actually pretty low. Most people, when I talk to our customers, I'm generally not speaking a lot of publicly like this, and they are not familiar. They might have heard the name, and they might have heard the name enterprise scale, but I have also met a lot of customers that have been doing a lot of modification on the Azure landing zone architecture that I don't really like because they might be tearing it wrong because they're not seeing the full picture of why these things are segmented to begin with. So I think there's still a learning curve here that we still need to lift.
Yeah, that's good. That's why we were talking about cloud migration and CAF and WAF and the hybrid cloud. Actually, we got a comment also from Wim, like hybrid cloud is the
Exactly.
most way, because I also understand that. That's why this is a good lineup of sessions today, because I know some companies, especially those that are private, anywhere you are, they are always conscious about governance, data, privacy. So having this option to have things private and public, and the flexibility is always good. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I actually only work with 2 customers, I think, that are completely Azure native, and the rest of them are all hybrids. So
Okay, that's good. Yes. So I have no more questions, Håkan. No questions from the audience. I'm really glad that you I mean, the audience, especially that tuned in for the last 3 hours since 12, and also the speakers that devoted their time. It's been great, and thank you to me for the great session. Do you have anything that you want to share to our audience before we end the
yeah,
live stream that you want to advocate or share related to your talk or whatever you do?
yeah. Can I make a selfish request?
What?
Can I
Yes.
make a selfish request?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, just checking. So if anyone would like to give me feedback, I would very much appreciate. So please just add me on LinkedIn and type a message. I would be so happy to get the feedback.
Yes, I did write out some feedback as we agreed
Yeah,
on your session
yeah.
in
Thank
the
you.
speaker to speaker perspective.
Yeah.
So that's great. Also the talk. So, and feel free to share about my book to your clients if they need to learn about the fundamentals of Azure.
Of
And
course.
we're also giving it away as a gift, for a signed copy from me, for the best technical questions that we choose, which I actually starred. We got a lot actually since the last session, but we do have one feedback. Håkan, should we show it? Do you think?
Yes.
Yes, let's do that.
Do that.
Yes, let's show it. Let's show. You can click so we don't unsync. Yes, great.
Yeah, so this is Ruchi, who said that in terms of how common it is with the cloud adoption framework, that they have a client which is one of the Norway's biggest oil and gas companies, and they are also migrating to the Azure cloud platform now.
Yeah. Yeah, and as this is just a super high introduction to cloud adoption framework, if you want to download the PDF, I think it's like 3,500 pages. So just to
Yes.
cover the broad of the whole framework.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And I want to add also that when you're migrating .NET legacy applications to the cloud, when I had that project, I didn't have that option. But if there's a Visual Studio plugin for .NET applications that actually helps you also assess your .NET codes, and how, I mean, assess it like just like CAF or Microsoft Assessment. It has that also for like Azure Arc, for like assessing everything in the .NET code for legacy. It has also that migration tool within the Visual Studio that everyone can also try out for that type of stock. Yes. Okay. So I think we've accomplished 3 hours of Global Azure session, Håkan, with 3 amazing speakers today.
Yes, very, very, very well done.
Yes, well done. So we are already on the top of the hour, so probably we will skip the retrospective. This is our retrospective already of the sessions. Any last final words from you, Håkan?
Yeah, we can just very briefly
Yes.
here share a little bit about.
You can stay with us, Timmy. It will be the more the merrier.
I was
Yes.
I was just confused if I should sign up or not. But
No,
I think I'm
don't
gonna
leave
No, you can
us.
stay.
Okay,
Yes,
okay. I'll stay.
it's good. The more the merrier.
Yeah, so we just have some information here about our sponsors. So these are sponsors for the whole global Azure events worldwide here. So JetBrains are giving away a 3-month subscription for new customers. So you can use a promo code Global Azure to 2024, and you can redeem it on this link that we show here. And the important here that you need to redeem it before the 2nd of May in order to be able to use it. And then we also have another sponsor, which is PackT, which is a publishing company. So they have a raffle here for free ebooks So if you want to participate, you can fill in the form on this link, and then you will be able to take part in a raffle for free ebooks from PacT. And then the last sponsor that we would like to showcase here is from Captain Hyperscaler. They are offering 200 attendees of the Global Azure with 180-day on-demand access courses on different topics related to cloud security. So if you want to be part of this, you just fill out this form that you can see on this link here.
Yes, that's right. And I think there's more sponsor related global Azure sponsors. So you can, if you're curious about it, it's open to attendees. Feel free to access the main page of Global Azure as well. I think it's globalasure.net is the website for that. We can share it also later. And I can share about my free trial access to my book, Håkan, if it's okay with
Yes.
everyone. Yes. Aside from the best technical questions, signed copy, physical copy, we would choose. You can also uh, check out my book. So if you're going to register to O'Reilly, for example, the online platform, you can use Azure 23 as a promo code that will allow you to read my book for 30 days. And not just my book, but the rest of the learning videos and training materials on the O'Reilly platform, which is a very huge one, not just that the publisher. So feel free to make most of that code Azure 23, which is this one, by the way. It was the wrong one. So this is the step. So you go to the bit.ly link, sign up with this exact promo code. Otherwise, you only get 10 days. And then scan the QR to read it or the other books online. That's it. It went quick, Håkan. It
Yes.
went well. Thank you so much also for your time and everyone's time today. It's been a success.
Yeah, truly. So we should thank all the
Mm,
speakers, and also thank all of the audience who has tuned in for an hour session. And then one important thing here is that you will be able to see this also on our YouTube channels in
yeah.
very soon.
Yes. And feel free to join our user group as well for normal bi-weekly sessions that we have on Saturdays. And if you are someone that has something to share, regardless if you're a beginner, expert speaker already, if you got something to share about Azure content or development related on Azure, feel free to send a session out. We have to be honest that we have a lot of sessions in queue, but we're prioritizing and giving everyone a chance to speak in our group as well. Okay. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Timmy, and we wish everyone a great weekend and enjoy the rest of the Global Azure events on meetups on globally in the coming days or this weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.